everybody. Welcome to Liberty and EDC. I'm your host, Daniel Norman, and we're here with Craig Schmidt, who's running for EID Board for Division 3. That's right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Actually, before we get into that too much, where's Division 3 at?
So Division 3 is in Placerville, Swansboro, Rescue, Lotus, and Coloma, and even a little portion of El Dorado Hills. So it's a pretty good size area up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, tell us, who's Craig Schmidt, the person?
Craig Schmidt, the person. Well, let's see. My wife and I moved here about 22 years ago. We lived up in Seattle on an island up there.
Oh yeah.
And we moved down here. We had our daughter here, Annika Schmidt. Annika is a junior now at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, majoring in microbiology, which is pretty timely for these times, as you might guess. And in the summer months, she's a river raft guide for all outdoors in Lotus and Coloma.
Oh, in Coloma,
so
okay.
yeah, very involved in the community out there. My wife is a doctor of veterinary medicine. She has her own practice, a mobile practice, and been serving the community for about 20 years. I'm the CEO.
Does she do all animals, like big ones and stuff too? Is that why she's mobile?
Dogs and cats.
Dogs
and cats mainly. Yeah, she does dogs and cats. So small pets, kind of thing. Although some of the dogs she sees, we saw one the other day, is 170 pounds. So
oh wow.
pretty good size. Pretty good size dog. Myself, I'm the CEO and chairman of the board of a corporation, international corporation. We're in 125 countries around the world. And let's see, for the last 7 years, I've been attending EID board meetings. I got interested in water.
How many years, he said?
7 years.
Wow,
7 years. Yeah. I've been sitting in those EID board meetings for 7 years now, watching a variety of 3-2 vote after 3-2 vote that really didn't get the benefit of influence of the ratepayers. And that's really why I'm running in this, is to try to represent ratepayers.
So you were saying those votes didn't go in the favor of the ratepayers?
Yeah, they really represented the bigger organizations around El Dorado County. And so as I watched that go on, and with my background, with the computer background that I have,
what's the company?
So the company I have, I've been with Hewlett Packard. And then the second largest computer software company in the world, CA, which we just sold for, I think it was $14.8 billion just about 6 months ago. And I've done 3 startups since then. So I've kind of been involved in that industry for years. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science, so kind of logical thinking. I have a master's degree in business and MBA in the finance side of things. So I've got a financial background. And I also have master's credits in engineering, artificial intelligence from Stanford. And so that's kind of more the creative thinking. So in my business background for all these 40 years, I've tried to kind of pull those together and work with a variety of diverse views, because we're dealing with people in all different walks of life, in all different countries, and all different settings. Obviously, we have to balance budgets across all of these regions. Very similar to EID. You've got to balance the budget. I'm a fiscal conservative, so I am a prudent spender, and I think that's one of the things that we really need on EID's board right now is we've just been, the EID's been spending and spending and spending, and I think folks' rates have been going up and up and up. And in fact, I have a chart, if I could show that to you.
Oh, yeah.
See that? So I don't know if your viewers can see this very well, but the bottom line down here is the consumer price index over the last 10 years. It's gone up about 21%. EID's water rates is the top line, and it's gone up 102%. So water rates in this county have gone up 5 times the consumer price index.
And that's over the past 10 years?
Over the past 10 years. So this is the kind of thing where when you look at this, and people I talk to all the time say, my gosh, my water rates just keep seeming to go up. My sewer rates just keep seeming to go up. Well, this is why. Because this chart, these are just numbers. And these are the numbers from EID on their water rate increases and the numbers from the government on consumer price index. And it's 5 times. And next year, according to their Proposition 218 notice.
Actually, before we
Okay,
move away
sure.
from that, so I noticed
Yeah.
it's percentages
Yeah,
on there.
sure.
What does that represent as like a dollar amount, or can you like kind of ballpark that for us? Because I mean,
What does that mean to,
Right.
to real people here? Kinda-
yeah, is it like, I mean, you could say there's a 200% increase from $1, but that's like, oh, okay.
What does that matter? What
Right.
does that matter? Things. Well, to give you just a couple of things, so water rates get split into two categories. One is the base rate that you get charged for being connected to EID's water system, for the kind of privilege of being connected.
And that's for a year or a month that they
It's
usually
every
charge.
2 months.
Okay.
Every 2 months. And that's gone from $22.10 up to $66.43.
Wow.
So you get $20 to almost $70 on that rate. The water rates are on your actual use. So for a customer that's using an average amount of water, that may be, I don't know if it's $100, $120. You live here. I mean, you could probably answer that question. I know what my water rates are, kind of a thing. But when you say a 5 times multiple in that, you've seen the water rates, the actual use, go up dramatically high on that. So, I know people that their water bill is $170 every 2 months. I know people that the water bill's $600 or $800 every 2 months. And so when you see these increases, if it was $600 or $800, divide that. It used to be $150 back here. Now it's $600. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. And for somebody who's living on Social Security or unemployment or minimum wage, and you see a 5-fold increase over the kind of rate increases that they're getting, or consumer price index that they're getting, that really eats into their ability to put food on the table, or to pay their other bills, maybe their credit card bills, whatever they are. And so that's one of the reasons I'm running here, is because I just see this affecting the county in these never-ending rate increases that we're getting from both PG&E and EID at the same time, that it's just taking so much money out of the pockets of the consumers in our county that I'm fearful that it's just slowly breaking the county, and we just can't afford that. That's the part that concerns me. I just tonight, by the way, the Social Security Administration came out and announced that the COLA increase, the cost of living adjustment for this next year, is going to be 1.3%. EID's water rates, according to their Proposition 218 notice, that's the notice they have to put out if they're going to raise rates, and then people can object to that if they want to. But most people don't even know how to do that, and they don't make it easy for you to do. The cost of living, the residential water commodity rates are slated to go up 17% next year.
Wow.
17%.
For EID?
For EID. The base rate, remember that connection rate we talked about? It's going to decrease. You know how much it's going to decrease?
You told me earlier.
A dime. It's going to go down a dime. It's
That's
going
crazy.
from $63.53 to $63.43. So, you look at this and you go, God, they're talking all about this rate decrease like they're landed on Mars. And it's a dime. Yet the actual use is going up 17%.
Wow.
So it's huge. And if we continue on with the same incumbents that we have in office, we're going to expect more of this. And in fact, next year, right after the election, is when they're going to raise rates, by the way, right after the election. Because the incumbents know that if they did this before the election and saw that hockey stick up, they'd never get reelected. So, this is the kind of information that I wish I could spread to everybody out there. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
To get some of this information out, because it's just so crucial to me that we try to protect the ratepayers around the county. There's about 112,000 of us around the county that are in various homes, about 42,000 homes. And EID just borrowed $81 million more just this last year alone. The debt went from $280 million to $361 million, up $81 million in 1 year. That's why this is going to go up 17%, because they just keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing.
So why is that? I mean, you've been going to these meetings for 7 years, you said. Like, why are our rates just keep going up and up and up? Like, why do they borrow all this?
It's a great question. You know, some borrowing is essential because it's a capital intensive business. You know, you got big pipes in the ground. You've got to pump things over the mountains and down and up from Folsom Lake to people, you know, up in El Dorado Hills. But just as one example, matter of fact, I'll give you two examples.
Yeah.
There's a project called the Folsom Lake Intake Project.
Okay.
And there's 6 pumps down in Folsom Lake. And those 6 pumps pump water up the hill to the water treatment plant where the water gets treated to make it purified for human consumption.
Okay.
Last year, almost less than a year ago, in EID's capital improvement plan, because they plan out what projects they're going to do, that project was projected to cost $17.7 million.
Okay.
That's a pretty fair price, by the way.
Okay.
Okay. 2 months ago, the board just signed off on doing that same project with less capacity, $42.7 million. Went from $17 million to $42.7 million.
Is that
in
us or
less than a
that's
year.
in Folsom?
No, it's us.
Oh.
It's EID. It's not Folsom.
We're-
It's Folsom Lake pumping up the water up to El Dorado Hills. So EID's territory starts really in El Dorado Hills and goes all the way up to Pollock Pines and Swansboro and Rescue and the places that I'm at.
Why are we pumping water uphill? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like a very efficient use.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because we have these large reservoirs, and we had George in here. He was saying how we're selling water from a reservoir to other places.
Yep.
So why are we paying so much to now pump water up the hill from Folsom?
So there's kind of 3 water systems in the El Dorado irrigation district. El Dorado Hills is basically fed from Folsom Lake. That's where their water comes back. So the water runs down the American River, and it's outside of where we have pumping stations. El Dorado EID has pumping stations until it gets down to the lake. And then we pump it back uphill to the treatment plant and then distribute it through Folsom. So your question is very appropriate. Why? Okay. Then there's other pumps, or not pumps, but we gravity fed, that come down from Sly Park Reservoir, Jenkinson Lake. People call it, they call it Sly Park, but Jenkinson Lake is what it's really called. And about 1/3 of our water supply comes down the hill from there to be able to supply Shingle Springs, Cameron Park, Pollock Pines, Camino. And then there's another piece of that comes out of the American River where it gets diverted up a diversion up by Kybers. There's a diversion dam up there.
Okay.
And it gets moved out, and it gets moved down into what are called flumes. And these flumes are these large wooden structures, currently wooden structures, built many, many years ago,
Okay.
sitting up on the side of the hill, and it's bringing water down these big troughs is probably the best way to think of it. And that water comes down 22 miles of these flumes, and then it comes down into Forebay Dam, which is up in Camino, Pollock Pines area. And then there's a 3-mile stretch that it goes into a ditch. They call it the Upper Main Ditch.
Okay.
And that Upper Main Ditch takes the water 3 miles down to the water treatment plant.
This has to be a pretty big ditch, right? When you say ditch, I just imagine like...
Yeah, it's about 6 or 8 feet wide.
Okay.
And interesting enough, about 1/3 of our water supply that comes down the hill goes through that ditch.
Okay.
And the second project I was going to talk to you about is exactly that one. It was a little while ago, some years ago, it was projected to be $3.4 million to pipe that ditch.
Okay.
It's now $17.7 million to pipe that ditch. And as George probably explained to you, I would guess in his video, EID believes they are going to be able to save about 1,800 acre-feet of water a year through evaporation and transvaporation, soaking down into the ground and things like that. And we're going to spend $18 million to do this 3 miles of saving of water. We have 70,000 acre-feet of water rights. We have 70,000 acre-feet of water rights for EID. We use 25,000 acre-feet of water each year. We got 45,000 extra acre-feet of water a year that we're not using right now that just runs down the rivers or runs into the lake and then goes down further.
Okay.
So we're spending $10,000 per acre-foot of water to pipe that 3-mile stretch of ditch with 22 miles of open flumes and waterways above that. And the argument is it's going to make the water safer because we're going to pipe this 3-mile stretch of ditch down here. But there's 22 miles of water above this that's open. So it's kind of a nonsensical argument in my mind. It's also costing us $10,000 an acre-foot of water to pipe that ditch. And you know what the water's selling for right now? $350 an acre-foot. We're spending $9,650 extra per acre-foot of water right now to pipe that ditch. And that's one of the other reasons I'm running. I'm kind of running on 3 platforms. One is to stop these runaway rate increases. One is to stop this reckless spending, which I just talked to you about. 2 examples. $10,000 an acre-foot, $350 is the sale price.
Yeah.
$17 million to do Folsom Lake, $42 million now in less than a year. Nobody on the board asked why. When they put this up, they just rubber stamped it yes and went on. And I'm sitting here as the chairman of the board of our corporation and say, my gosh, if my folks brought to me something like that and said, we're going from 17 million to 42 million, I would ask why. I would at least ask why. I just wouldn't say, okay, go.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be doing. That's the fiscal conservative in me, and I think in Sue Taylor, that will say, what's going on here? Let's ask those questions why and try to figure that out. So, I mean, that's why I'm running, is to try to get these things back under control. Use some of my 40 years of business experience and bring it to El Dorado County, bring it to the folks of El Dorado County, and make sure that when we're going out to raise money through bonds and increase debt, that we really need to be spending that $18 million, or we really need to be spending that $42 million, and that we really make good choices and ask why, and hold management accountable, and be prudent in our spending. And I just think we're not doing that right now. So if we want more of this, the incumbents are a great choice. If you want more of this, go for the incumbents. If you don't want more of this, then it's time for a change. And if we don't vote for change, we're not going to get change, and we're going to sit here and complain about the rates for the next 10 years.
Now, what do you think you can change and do differently than what they're doing now?
Well, a couple of things right away. First of all, this $18 million project to pipe the upper main ditch, I think that is way premature. The state has not required us to pipe the upper main ditch. We don't need to be spending $18 million to save 1,800 acre-feet of water when we've got 45,000 acre-feet of water excess right now. That saves $18 million right there. On this project down in Folsom Lake, 17 million to 42 million, and not even asking why? Well, I can tell you, I'm going to go back and ask why, and bring that back up again, bring that project back up again, so that we really fully understand what needs to be done there. And to top this all off today, and I think I mentioned this too when we emailed a couple of days or so ago.
Yeah.
This morning was EID's board meeting to go over the capital improvement program projects for the next 5 years.
Okay.
And in that meeting, EID on page 197 of 497 pages, a full packet this big, huge. One line in the bottom said, we plan on going out and raising another $75 million in 2025, which is basically 4 years from now. So not only do we
so when they say raising
debt.
Okay, so taking on debt.
So the rate increases we're getting right now, 4 or 5 years from now, are going to be compounded again with another $75 million of debt. And I personally, when I look at the financials and went through these things, I don't think they're going to be able to wait till 2025 with the projects they have slated
Wow.
to go right now. So I think we maybe have 2 or maybe 3 years. I just don't see this as and they actually admitted that in the package. They have 3 other projects. They said, well, they're really not even included because we haven't estimated the cost or time frame yet.
Wow.
So, I mean, if we just went in debt $81 million. By the way, one other point for you, which I think you could probably really relate to. When you go pay your credit card bill this month, at the end of this month, and I don't know if it's $200 or $300 or $1,000 or whatever it is, you probably don't know you've got a credit card debt to EID right now of $9,000. Every ratepayer that owns a house has got a debt of $9,000. And every time that you pay your EID bill, part of what you pay in that is going to pay off that credit card debt that you owe them for. And it's $9,000 a ratepayer right now. I mean,
And they want to increase that?
And they want to increase it. It just up 81 million this last year and another 75 million. They say 2025. I think it's probably going to be earlier than that if we don't get the right board people in there that actually ask the right questions and do the prudent spending and take a fiscal conservative approach to this. Because this never-ending rate increases, how can somebody on Social Security that's getting a COLA increase of 1.3% afford a 17% increase? That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm running, is to, I've been fortunate in my businesses, and
Let me ask you why.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like you've done a whole lot. Like, why EID? Why the water board for you?
So 30 some years ago, I was flying down to Southern California, and I happened to sit next to the person that eventually became the speaker for the state assembly.
Okay.
Antonio,
For our area up here?
for the whole state.
Oh, speaker. Gotcha. Okay.
For the whole state, for the speaker, Antonio Villagrosa. And at the time, he didn't know he was going to become speaker. He was just part of the assembly and things like that. But we just happened to sit next to each other. And a bunch of people were trying to talk to him on and off. But, eventually you got to put your seatbelts on and everybody has to sit in their seats and things like that. And so we just kind of struck up a conversation. And I happened to ask him, where are you going? What do you do? And he was asking me the same kind of thing. And he said, I'm state assembly. I said, oh, wow. And I didn't really know much about state assembly and things at the time, truthfully. And I said, what kind of a conference are you going to? And he goes, well, it's about water. And I said, really? What about water? What about it? And he said to me, I think water could be the thing that splits the state in two. And I go, really, why? And he goes, well, the vast majority of the water is in Northern California, and the vast majority of the population is in Southern California. And we see this through voting districts and everything that's going on right now. And, now billions of gallons of water later, of the water transfers that we've done to Southern California, and I'm not opposed to Southern California, but here we are piping a little ditch up in Northern California. And when they take that water away from the trees and the animals and the plants, when we've got all this excess water up here, that's going to brown all those trees. It's going to increase the fire danger. And the state is basically on fire right now. And yet EID is going to say, nope, we're going to pipe that ditch no matter what, because we're going to save 1,800 acre feet of water. Well, that's really short-sighted to me. That we would do something like that and put all those people up in Pollock Pines and Camino in jeopardy for fire when they've got a ditch that's been there for 140 years. All of the animals, the wildlife, the trees and everything. And I'm not a big environmentalist, kind of thing, but this just doesn't make sense to me to go brown up a whole nother area when we've got all this fire danger right here. And yet we're shipping all this water down to Southern California, and we've got a bunch of excess water up here, and we're really fortunate that we have all this excess water.
Yeah.
We should be applauding that. And I know I sound like I'm negative on EID. I'm really not. The folks at EID, the workers that are doing things, the staff, they're great. I mean, the water up here is wonderful. It's great. It tastes great. We've got plenty of it. And I applaud them every day. I just think the senior management is making decisions that are not in the best interests of the ratepayers. The folks that are actually doing the work at EID are great. You know, when our power went off a couple weeks ago, our water still kept working because the folks at EID got power generators in, they kept all the pumps working, they kept everything going, they did a great job. They did a great job. But when a project goes from 17 million to 42 million in less than a year, and we're spending $18 million for a small amount of water that's going to actually impact the community in a very negative way, that to me is the kind of thing that my management background and me being chairman of the board for these 20 years of our corporation just doesn't make sense. And that's the kind of thing, that's why I'm running, because I think we need to get some common sense back into EID and see if we can, you know, change the composition of this board to really start thinking about ratepayers first, because they've been paying a lot for a long time. And I think now's the time that if you're seeing these charts, you know, again, this chart, if it hockey sticks up this way, and then they borrow 75 million some years from now, and it hockey sticks up again, we're gonna be sitting out here someplace. And that's not good for our community, in my opinion. So I threw my hat in the ring after 7 years ago in these meetings and said, you know, Craig, I'm funding my campaign myself. There have been some people that have donated to it, which has been great, and I really appreciate that. But I know that, you know, for this kind of a campaign, you know, it's not a presidential election, you know, or running for senator, things like that. But it's really important to all of us around here that we keep an ample water supply, that we keep a clean water supply, and that we think of ratepayers when we're making the decisions like this.
Yeah. So if someone's interested in your campaign, they want to learn more, where can they go?
So they can go to www.fixeid.com.
Okay.
and they can get more information up there and see some of these charts that I've held up and look at them closer. And there's a bunch of links up there that you can go look at things yourself and do the analysis yourself if you really want to do that. But you know, that's why I hire board directors, to go through these 497 pages of packets and pick out those little tidbits that are stuck down on page 197 that they think nobody's going to see, but it says $75 million more in debt in a few years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy to me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Craig.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
This has been Liberty in EDC, and we're here with Craig Schmidt, who's running for EID Division 3. And you can find us on Comcast Channel 7 up here, and also on YouTube at youtube.com/Foothill7TV. And we'll see you guys next time.